5-year contract. It's just, I bring it up only because who cares, Scott? It's just Jaren Jackson Jr., good player, don't get me wrong, $50 million a year. You know, we all bitch and complain about the Juan Soto deals and the Ohtani deals, and you get guys like Jaren Jackson making $50 million a year.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
There's now 7 different directors of analytics for like the Raptors, the Chiefs, where you can see us all like workshopping these ideas in these threads because golf is so ubiquitous amongst gamblers. And so that was like the most popular non-poker forum was the golf sub-forum. And then once we started thinking about once I realized in 2013 that Brody's book was coming out, I just thought stroke chain putting was it.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
I'm saying I like their odds because I think they're insane at this point, but I do think they are a very viable option.
I don't even think their odds are that insane, honestly. They won 64 games.
So you like this move for them?
Well, so the odds...
Regardless of the odds, just from basketball.
Yeah, the odds have nothing to do with it. They won 64 games. They were eliminated by the Pacers, who lost Halliburton. The other 60-win team was the Celtics, and they lost Tatum. I think...
And the Knicks don't have a coach.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You want to take that gap year and trade LeBron James somewhere and get value, legitimate value for a 41-year-old player, LeBron James, I still think, in return. I think you have to explore that because if LeBron wants to win a title, we've heard so much buzz for, I think, 3 or 4 years now, Kevin, about Stephen Curry and LeBron James wanting to eventually play together. This might be that moment here. If you're the Golden State Warriors, why not make that call? I think that's something to watch out for.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Questions swirl about the Bucks offseason. Plus, WNBA players are calling their latest CBA proposal a slap in the face. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we chat the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. As we close out this holiday week, we also have NFL Hall of Famer Jerome Bettis on later talk Aaron Rodgers joining his Steelers. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start across the pond, Renee, with upsets galore over at Wimbledon, especially for the Americans. On the women's side, second-ranked Coco Gauff, fresh off her French Open win, and third-ranked Jess Pegula both lost in the first round. That's the first time 2 of the top 3 seeds lost their opening matches in Open-era history. Meanwhile, on the men's side, 12-seed American Francis Tiafoe also defeated in the second round Wednesday as well. But we should note, some other ones like Madison Keys did win, so she's going to move on to the next round. But my goodness, the Americans haven't been looking too good in this.
Well, coming off of Coco Gauff's really doing a great job at the French Open and ending that winless streak for Americans in that tournament, we were hoping the same momentum would roll into Wimbledon. Now, there's still hope, obviously, but to see that there have been 13 upsets on the men's side total, 10 upsets on the women's side across the board, and a lot of Americans like Coco that have been knocked out quickly, it does make things a little bit more difficult. Now, the other side of this is how does this impact, as we talked so much even on our show about the growth of tennis, American fans, how does this impact the audience, the ratings, the viewership, but overall, it does now diminish the odds of snapping that winless streak at Wimbledon, which is right now sitting at 9 years.
Yeah, and you have to think ESPN, wanted the Americans to do much better, but maybe hoping for an Alcaraz-Sinner reunion for the finals as well. All right, the dust is settled after a wild start to the NBA free agency, and while many players found new teams, all the attention right now is centered in Milwaukee. That after the Bucks dumped Damian Lillard and replaced him with Miles Turner. Now, friend of the show, Chris Haynes, is reporting that Chris Paul could be an option there to replace Lillard, who, according to reports, is happy to leave the Bucks. Renee, some NBA insiders even calling this offseason for the Bucks reckless right now.
This is messy. There's a lot we're getting out of this. Of course, it all goes back to Miles Turner didn't even want to leave the Pacers as the longest tenured, but Indianapolis moved on from him. Now he goes to Milwaukee, which stirs the pot to Dame getting waived and his contract stretched. But then as we're hearing more, his agent for Damian Lillard has said, actually, it's a blessing in the sense because you've got got 2 years as a free agent to shop around, and the Warriors are already calling him, knocking on his door allegedly, and then now we hear Chris Paul in the mix. It's a lot going on. I know Carmelo Anthony said there's no loyalty in the NBA, and it makes you wonder for someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's been loyal to the Bucks and has openly said he's unhappy with this move. Will this now change that stance and make him consider moving? And all this just leads to more questions, but I will say for the Bucks, they did get rid of Dame, which was he accounted for a third of their salary. So it does allow financially for them to make some moves since they didn't have a lot of options. But it also makes you wonder for teams like the Bucks, similar to what we're seeing with the Lakers, who have openly said they're not looking to really build anything immediately. They're building for 2027 when LeBron's now opt-in contract comes to an end. So two big names, two big teams that are honestly spinning around a little bit right now.
It's clear all these moves by the Bucks were designed to keep Giannis in Milwaukee, but Brian Windhorst, there's this clip of him going viral right now saying that the Bucks are basically buying the hot car to impress the girl, and the girl may or may not be interested in them. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever didn't need Caitlin Clark to win their first WNBA Commissioner's Cup Tuesday. That against the defending champion Minnesota Lynx. They secured that $500,000 prize pot as well. It also was the first home loss for the season for the Lynx. Now, Caitlin Clark did miss her third straight game with a groin injury, but her team didn't need her in this one, Renee.
They did not. And I love that the Commissioner's Cup as an in-season tournament, it takes the regular season games, some of them at least, and they are contributed to the Commissioner's Cup as a way to add incentive for the games. It adds more pay opportunities and then also build some rivalries. There's been 5 different Commissioner Cups and 5 different champions. And with the Fever winning, as you mentioned, with that $500,000 pot they split, it's $5,000 for each player in the championship game. They also get a $120,000 in cryptocurrency as well. So just excited to see what this has added to the WNBA to give players a little extra incentive.
And let's stay with the WAs. News of this week's expansion hasn't sit too well with players. Sophie Cunningham telling reporters, I don't know how excited people are going to be going to Detroit or Cleveland. And Mercury forward Satu Sabali said she would rather see roster expansion, calling the latest CBA proposal a slap in the face. So let's dive into this and more in our main event. All right, let's bring in CBS Sports WNBA analyst and also a sideline reporter for the Connecticut Sun, Tarika Foster-Brasby. Tarika, thank you so very much for joining us. It doesn't seem like players seem that excited about these 3 new expansion franchises.
Well, I would counter that by saying it doesn't seem like one player is excited about these 3 new expansion franchises. Everyone else seems to be excited about the growth of the WNBA. And I think it's going to be so important for players to continue to buy into what this league is trying to do. Detroit and Cleveland are 2 cities that have an already rich history within the WNBA. The players, former players, shall I say, are very excited about these 2 cities having a WNBA team again. And Philadelphia is, besides being the home of arguably one of the greatest coaches in college basketball, one of the players in WNBA history, and Dawn Staley, but also the home of Kalia Copper. And everybody loves Kalia Copper, right? She reps North Philly all day, every day. And we won't talk about them being the home of also the reigning NFL champions, Super Bowl champions of the Philadelphia Eagles. So when you talk about sports towns, Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia are 3 cities that have a rich history and support system of sports fans all over everywhere. Seriously, guys, if you're a Lions fan and a Browns fan, there's no way you can tell me that you don't have fandom in your city.
By the way, I can tell why Tarika's your friend, by the way.
Came right in hyping me up. But I will say, Tarika, it is interesting because after the WNBPA came out with their announcement saying, listen, in light of the expansion news, this further just supports what and reinforces what players have been fighting for. And that as the league is growing, we want to make sure that the players are fully sharing in the success that they deserve. And then Satu Sabali of the Phoenix Mercury came out and also mentioned that the recent proposal from the CBA discussions was a slap in the face. What are your thoughts on just kind of the gap? Because on the outside looking in, the league's in a great spot. Expansion, Commissioner's Cup, excitement, buzz. But internally, it feels like there's still a disconnect in what players are actually going to be receiving with these CBA negotiations.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like this is common, right? I don't think there's ever been anywhere in the history of negotiations where people have gotten it right the first time. So I think this is actually common. The players understand that they have a lot of leverage. And one of the key things that we've heard, not only Satu Sabali as a member of that committee, but also Nneka Ogwumike as the president of the Players Association has said oftentimes, number one, pay structure is going to be the first thing that is going to be on our radar. It is a top priority for us, and we know that we have the leverage. And so to me, it makes a lot of sense that the first proposal will probably not be one that the players will agree to, but this is exactly how you build the negotiation table. Nobody really wants a work stoppage. The players have said that. The league has said that. But I think that the players, because they understand the leverage they have, not only with the growth of the league, but with the ability to have additional leagues that have started and have been successful, like Unrivaled and Athletes Unlimited, like the many people that we see growing the women's college game and having the opportunity for have spaces for them at these expansion levels. They understand the leverage that they have. And so I think the league also understands that there has to be a starting point, and this possibly is what that is. They're not going to accept whatever proposal it is that comes out first.
Yeah, especially the incredibly lucrative media deal that the WNBA got as well. That's just added leverage. You're correct for the players. In the 90 seconds or so we have left with you, do you think that we will get a deal, or do you think that there will be a work stoppage here?
I think both teams, I think both sides have been very clear that they're optimistic that a deal can get done. What I don't think that we should expect, either as fans or media or those that are following closely, is that it's going to happen quickly. They have until October of this year to truly put together something, and the players are going to be focused on playing, trying to win a championship, but also trying to continue to piece that together. So I would just ask for people to be patient and let this thing kind of play itself out.
I could not agree more. It needs time to marinate and for all the discussions to happen appropriately to really figure this out.
And I think fans want this transformational deal as well as
Absolutely.
the players do. Tarika Foster-Brasby, such a pleasure to have you here, CBS Sports WNBA analyst joining us here. And coming up next, everyone, we talk Aaron Rodgers joining Pittsburgh with Steelers legend Jerome Bettis. That interview is coming up next on Front Office Sports Today. Don't go anywhere.
Let's get down to business with the particulars. The Pittsburgh Steelers will get Jalen Ramsey into their defensive backfield. They'll get Jonnu Smith.
All this talk I'm hearing about they're going to trade TJ Watt, that's not happening either. Okay, so I don't think that's even remotely in the cards. All this talk today, he's next. I don't believe that. I think they're going to give him a new deal.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
9 times out of 100, when you get a gift for the boys in Vegas, what happens? The dude doesn't even get out of the first inning. I feel bad for him. He gave up 7 runs, 5 earned, but 7 runs in total, 5 hits, walked 2, didn't strike out a batter, and like I said, didn't get out of the first inning, got 1 out. I don't know how they do, Joe, but I'm telling you, those lines didn't make any sense.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Devin Booker had to run the point when Chris Paul was hurt. And we're like, Devin Booker's a point guard. Devin Booker's not a point guard. Neither is Jalen Green. So I need to know what to get rid of Bradley Beal, who cannot be on that team. Who is the point guard? And then I think as a 6th man, I actually don't mind it with Jalen Green.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
What is going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
How about I answer your question with a question, Kev?
Okay.
What could possibly go wrong?
I would say it's possible that you somehow, in bringing in Aaron Rodgers, which is supposed to be a win-now move, look around at your team and go, wait, Pickens, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and TJ Watt aren't on it anymore?
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back into Front Office Sports Today. Now, Baker had an opportunity to sit down with former Pittsburgh Steeler Jerome Bettis to talk about one of their latest additions, Aaron Rodgers. Let's take a look.
All right, we're joined by Jerome Bettis. Jerome, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We're going to get to the celebrity golf tournament that you're a part of here in just a little bit, but I'd love to get your thoughts on some of the things happening right now in the NFL, specifically your former team. The Steelers have their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. He did kind of insinuate maybe this might be his last year, but I'm curious your thoughts on him joining the Steelers and what he sort of brings the organization.
Well, I think he brings the organization a quarterback that can still compete on a high level. I think when you look at the Steelers in the last few years, it's been the lack of productivity at the quarterback position that's really cost them an opportunity to go deep into the playoffs. And so I think this is their best effort to try to get a really experienced guy who can give them an advantage at the quarterback position. The only question I believe that remains is, can the Steelers protect Aaron Rodgers? He's 41 years old. He's not going to be the most mobile. You've got to give him an opportunity to operate in that position. But he can't if he's not given the time. So I just think his offensive line is going to have to do a great job at protection and to allow the team to get the benefits that he can provide.
Yeah, and look, Mike Tomlin, I don't think he's ever had a losing record in Pittsburgh, which is really incredible given how tough it is to coach in the NFL. But do you think maybe this is the one year that the Steelers don't make the playoffs, or do you think they'll still do pretty well this year?
Well, the key is that they've got a playoff caliber defense, and because of that, they're going to always be in football games. I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where somewhere is going to just blow out the Steelers from a defensive standpoint. So with that being said, if they can get an average level of production from the quarterback position and a solid running game, I think the Steelers will be in contention. But the question is, will they be good enough to make it past the first round of the playoffs? I think that's what the true question is.
Jerome, this week there was this really big report from Mike Florio and Pablo Torre about how difficult it is for players to get guaranteed contracts. This was, of course, all in relation to Deshaun Watson getting his big deal with Cleveland. I guess my question to you is, I feel like running backs are harder to get more guaranteed money and deals. I feel like they're really sort of on the chopping block more than any other player. I guess your thoughts on this, and why is it so difficult for running backs to get these guaranteed deals?
Well, it's harder because what's happened in the NFL is the emergence of the tight end and the second wide receiver. So when you look at how offenses were made up in years past in terms of how you paid the left tackle who protected the blind side of your quarterback. You paid the quarterback, of course, and then you played your number one receiver. And then the other piece of that puzzle was the running back. Well, now you've got a second receiver and a tight end. So now you've got to take that money from some position. And I think the running back position, because of offenses going more to the passing game, they've said, you know what? We can go with a cheaper option at running back. They're less likely to pay the running back unless you have a franchise running back. Those are the guys that you commit to paying. The problem is you don't find that many because teams now in college, they're taking the same approach. So you don't get those great college running backs like you used to in years past. And I think that's the big problem.
Yeah, look, you're totally right. And I think for every Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, there's teams that have a myriad of other guys that they're just plugging and playing and moving on from. There's been a lot of talk, Jerome, about maybe an 18th NFL game. We know it's a lot of wear and tear on the players' bodies, and obviously they want to be compensated for that. But given the fact that you've gone through an NFL season, how difficult will it be for players to play an 18th game?
I think it'd be extremely difficult. I think that's why they will need to add a couple more players to the roster to give everybody an opportunity to make it through an 18-game schedule. Because to ask a guy to give you 18 weeks at that level is asking an awful lot. You've got to give him an opportunity to get a rest in there some kind of way, but also have a comparable number two at that position that can help. And I think that's part of the problem. You don't have enough roster spots, and the cap is so that you can't afford a really good backup in some positions. And I think that's where you're going to have to you got to give these players an opportunity to have a good backup, so they're not forced to have to do it for 18 weeks, because I don't think that's going to be feasible. So I think the NFL has to give and create that opportunity to allow for 18 weeks from a player perspective.
Bus, let's talk about this celebrity golf tournament that you're a part of, the Tahoe Golf Celebrity Golf Tournament that's going to be airing on NBC, Golf Channel, and Peacock July the 11th through the 13th. Got an interesting mix of people that are going to be a part of it. You're part of it. We just had Jay Billis on the other day talking about that he's going to be in it. Also, Tony Romo, John Smoltz, Vinny Del Negro, Annika Sorenstam. But I'm curious about Steph Curry. He won this thing just a few years ago. Does he win it again, or do you win it?
Well, I'll say this. It's the 36th year. I wore number 36, so I'm partial to it. It's the 36th year of the American Century Championship, right? So for me, this is a big year for the tournament, and a big year for me because I believe that I can do a lot more than I've done in the past. And the way I look at it is, I believe that it's time for a NFL guy to win. It cycles from a couple different sports, and a tennis guy won it last year. The year before that, Steph, a basketball guy, won it. It's time for a football guy and a guy like Tony Romo to come out on top. So I'm hoping we can get a football guy on the top of the leaderboard. But I will say this, it's going to be a great competitive mix, because you got some really talented guys at the top of the leaderboard, and some guys that are trying to repeat as champions.
Well, we can all see Jerome get past 15th place on July the 11th through the 13th on NBC, Golf Channel, and Peacock. Jerome Bettis, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks again to Jerome Bettis. And now let's shift over from Pittsburgh to Detroit around Malik Beasley and talking about what's going on with this federal investigation after this quick break.
Lonzo Ball, I guess, Chicago, they've just, kind of had enough here. Traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. What do you make of him being healthy? You think there's a chance? I mean, that's kind of the key.
What you said with all these guys re-signing kind of speaks to the landscape of free agents this year. Most of the guys, there isn't that much money out there to be had. I think the Nets are the only team that actually have cap space and can sign anybody outright.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
You got swept by the Marlins. You got some issues here. They're struggling. Arizona having their issues as well here. What I want to see here is Arizona take the lead. All right, and then let's attack the Diamondbacks bullpen. That bullpen is horrific. It's a dumpster fire. All right, that bullpen is that bad. Hit it a couple times over the weekend. Once they're up, hit the bullpen. That bullpen's going to blow the game. That's a great in-game bet for the against the Diamondbacks.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
I will keel over if they trade LeBron James to anyone. He is not leaving Los Angeles with all of his entertainment company, production studios, movies, TV shows, podcasts, everything that he does. This guy is stuck there like glue for the rest of his life. He's not leaving Los Angeles even when he's done playing.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Incredible run here for Suarez, but realistically speaking, Corbin Burns out, Corbin Carroll is out right now. This is not a contending team, especially in that division where you've got the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants. It's just too much to bear. The Diamondbacks would be smart to let Jordan Lawler play every day, see what he is, and then probably move on from Suarez.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee. I'm Baker. It hasn't been quite the offseason for free agent Malik Beasley. Shams reported that the Pistons were in talks with him, but now put pause on his contract. This after he faces a federal investigation over allegations of sports betting, and his former agent has also sued him, claiming that Beasley doesn't even have the money to settle the case. So let's bring in Ben Horney, the author of the Asset Class newsletter, to talk about this a little bit more. Ben, so tell us a little bit about how Malik Beasley got here.
Yeah, this is a wild story. Beasley has been in the league for a number of years. He kind of found his role last season with the Pistons. He averaged 16 points a game, I think 42 or 43% from three. He was, like you said, he was in line for the reports for a $42 million 3-year contract. And now all of a sudden he's under investigation, a federal investigation for sports betting related allegations. And there's not necessarily a clear through line that we know about this, but since that news came out, there have been all kinds of reports about past lawsuits he's been involved in where he owes a lot of people money. And when you're in gambling debt, you tend to owe people money. You tend to be trying to find ways to earn that money back. So the questions are, was he gambling to try to pay off these debts?
Yeah, nearly $60 million that he's earned across his career over the last 9 years in the NBA. And yet we've had a dentist came out. They also came out that he owed rent. It came out that he owed his agent. All these different allegations have come through. But he's also not the first NBA player that's had an issue in the last year or so. As you look at others like Jonte Porter and Terry Rozier, what are your thoughts on just kind of maybe the NBA having this problem, or I won't call it a problem, but an issue of keeping an eye on how players are involved in rigging, props, betting in their own games that they've been playing in?
Well, the NBA had this issue way back in the 90s with the referee, Tim Donaghy, and I'm sure that they are not happy that this is popping up again. But since sports betting has, since the federal law that prohibited sports betting was struck down in 2018, state by state, states have opened up to sports betting. And with that comes issues like this. So the NBA is not the only league that has had this issue. Calvin Ridley was suspended for the entire NFL season a few years ago. There were some college athletes that got embroiled in a scheme a couple of years ago. And obviously with Major League Baseball, there was the Shohei Ohtani's interpreter. So this is happening now that betting is legalized. There are still restrictions on players betting, and it's hard to police. There's an argument to be made that the people who are caught show the system's working, but this is 3 NBA players in the last couple of years, so it's certainly not a great look.
And also, does it sort of put all these leagues who have relationships with these sports books in a really tricky situation because they rely on them for promotion, for advertising, for money, for all of this fan engagement, but at the same time, you're having this issue with the players on the flip side.
Those relationships have been getting deeper and deeper because places like FanDuel, BetMGM, DraftKings, they are all major advertisers and major partners of these leagues. And so you're right, the leagues do lean on those partners in major ways. There's advertising all over the place. And it creates this difficult situation where the leagues are forced to walk this line of being partners with them, but they also have to crack down when there's issues with players. And Malik Beasley is the highest profile player yet for the NBA. And it remains to be seen what's going to happen with him. The Pistons are reportedly signing Duncan Robinson, seemingly in the same slot that they would have re-signed Malik Beasley. So it remains to be seen whether he's going to get signed. And with all of these other lawsuits that we're talking about, it seems like he owes a lot of people money. He may have really been counting on that next contract.
Well, the other intriguing part about this in the final seconds is this was from as recent as this past January of games that Malik Beasley was playing in that have allegedly been brought to the forefront. What are your thoughts quickly on how they're able to turn this investigation around so fast?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was from last season. Was when he was on the Bucks that the investigation is about, and it's really interesting how these things come about because it was reported by Shams on Sunday out of nowhere, and now everyone's trying to pick up on it. The NBA did acknowledge that there's an investigation. I have not been able to get in touch with the actual prosecutor's office.
All right, Ben Horney, author of the Asset Class newsletter, you can sign up for at frontofficesports.com, and let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well wishes to the popular halftime performer Red Panda, who fell off her unicycle. That during a performance at the WNBA Commissioner's Cup. She injured her wrist and was taken to a hospital for evaluation. Now, for those who don't know, Red Panda rides a unicycle 8 feet above the ground. She also balances bowls on her head. She does this at NBA and WNBA games, and she is a huge fan favorite. She's been getting big shout-outs from teams like the Pelicans and others, and even Caitlin Clark threw out a video telling her to get better.
I know, and according to her Wikipedia page, take that for what you want, she hasn't fallen in any performance like this. She's only fallen in practices before. It's not something you've seen from her. She is in her 50s, though, and she comes from an acrobat family as a Chinese performer that's, started out in the 90s with, the Los Angeles Clippers and has become the GOAT of halftime shows. So it makes me wonder, is this kind of the end for Red Panda's career?
No, we're not. We're putting out good vibes for Red Panda.
I don't know.
Guys, we're off for the rest of the week for July 4th. We're back Monday, July the 7th. Have a great holiday, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Hey, guys.